Matt, I want to unpack something you said. You talked about the brain as a data organ, and a lot of what we're doing is just getting data in and out. Is it really that simple as like just doing data I/O into the brain?
I mean, at an engineering level, yes. I mean, fundamentally, everything that you do, everything that you perceive is neural activity. It's information coming to your brain from the senses. Everything that you're physically doing, you're doing with your muscles, which is driven by control signals coming out of your brain. And in the end, all of your thoughts, all of the decisions you make have underlying neural activity. That's the substrate for consciousness. And so, once you start to think about everything that can go wrong in the brain in terms of neural activity and from a data perspective, it's just a very powerful way of reframing things. Like, you wouldn't, if Microsoft Excel is not working on your laptop, you wouldn't crack it open and start looking at transistors and probing transistors. No,
that's
you
what
treat
I
it. you treat it at a software level, and so there are different levels in a computer stack. You have applications, you have an operating system, all the way down to semiconductor physics. And depending on your problem, you have to know where you are in the stack. And that's how it is for neuro as well. Yeah. Molecules treat the transistors. Pharmaceuticals are treating the transistors. But the problems that we have in mental health are network level effects. They're more like software level effects. And so knowing kind of how to engage that in the technical hierarchy is super important.
Okay.
I was just going to add, I think that's actually one of the most important things about the way that we're looking at neuroscience now is that it was very synaptic, transistor level for such a long time. And now with the tools and techniques that we have to look at the network functioning in the brain, it's a whole different game, right? Thinking about depression as a problem at some synapses, right, is totally different than thinking about depression as a network challenge in the brain and something where you can actually use multiple types of devices to shift that network back into optimal functioning. And I think that's the big breakthrough, right, is that not only the perspective that we have about how to modulate those systems, but the understanding that we have at that functional network level that gives us the door in, I would say. So I just wanted to add that.
And where are we on the volume of data we can get in and out of the brain, relative to how much is going on inside the brain, and on decoding those signals and understanding what they mean? I asked the easy questions.
Yeah. So, super easy.
The brain, one of the things that's interesting to think about the brain is you have a gigahertz processor on your computer, but a neuron, if it's getting two inputs from two other neurons, it can't really tell the difference between which one came first if they're within a millisecond of each other. So if you wanted to peg a clock frequency to a neuron, you'd say it's about a kilohertz maximum. And so now you start to think about how is a data rate with the nervous system going to work? There's no high-speed bus. There's no USB in the brain. You have to record and stimulate as many neurons as possible. You want to pull as many neurons as possible. That's why the Utah array, when it came out, was a huge thing, because previously people had been doing single unit recordings with single tungsten wires, and all of a sudden there was this out-of-the-box package that did 100 at once. And so that's kind of where we are right now is people in clinical trials right now have Utah arrays, 1, 2, 4 Utah arrays, maybe a population of 100 to 400 neurons. Next generation technologies that are coming out are going to be 10, 20x that, and I think you're going to see the scaling every 2 or 3 years. Someone's going to come with a 2 or 4x better